Hello there, how are you? Hope you have survived our Avengers talk. Did you come out alive on the other end?
Moving on.
Yes, other movies exist in the world, and we're going to talk about one of them. It is JT Leroy. It's about JT Leroy, and
Yes.
Alonso will describe it.
So this movie actually premiered at Toronto last year under the title Jeremiah Terminator Leroy, but it's now getting some theatrical and I think mainly streaming. It is the latest film from Justin Kelly, whom I always call From Justin to Kelly.
I was thinking that too, yes.
I guess he has a thing for true stories. He did I Am Michael, which is the movie about James Franco as the gay journalist who went into ex-gay religious therapy.
Oh, right.
And then he did King Cobra, which starred James Franco as a guy involved in a real-life gay porn murder. So no James Franco this time, but it is a real story. JT Leroy was a best-selling author who wound up being the false creation of a woman named Laura Albert, who not only wrote under JT's name, but maintained a bunch of relationships in the world with, psychiatrists and publishers and eventually like celebrity fans on the phone. And it was all very virtual. But then the time came that JT had to appear in public, and so Laura pressed her sister-in-law, Savannah Knoop, into service, and Savannah would put on a wig and a big hat and sunglasses and dress very sort of androgynously and be JT out in the world. This movie was co-written by Savannah Knoop and based on their book, and so it is one of those biopics about a living person. So you're not getting the whole story, especially if you've seen the two really good documentaries about the whole JT Leroy phenomenon, Author, the JT Leroy Story, and The Cult of JT Leroy, both of which I recommend. One of them was made with Laura Albert's participation, and so it has a lot of taped phone calls with Courtney Love, and Courtney Love is in this movie now. And then the other one is made without Laura Albert's permission, and I think it gets a little deeper into things that Laura Albert would prefer you not know about. So together they make, I think, a pretty cohesive story. And this movie, as an addition to the canon, kind of feels like Savannah Knoop being like, well, here's how I saw it, and here, it I think sort of soft pedals some things. Asia Argento, who played a big role in all this because she directed and starred in a film adaptation of the Leroy short story collection, The Heart is Deceitful Above All Things, is played as an amalgam by Diane Kruger in this film, who the movie posits is making a movie out of Sarah, which is JT's novel. I've always been under the impression that Asia Argento knew what was going on, because how could she not? But this movie posits that no, it was all a surprise to her.
Although there's an interesting moment where, there's a scene where
At the Cannes Film Festival?
Yeah, at the festival where Eva, right?
Yeah, uses the word lesbian.
Right, says, what'd you think? I was going to go off on a lesbian. So she, at least knows that the JT Leroy as presented to the world is biologically female.
I wasn't sure about that. I was thinking that's one read, but the other read is that JT, the backstory of JT was that he was pimped out by his mother as a child at truck stops, and she would pass him off as a girl, and so adult JT is very damaged and hides behind this sort of wall of androgyny. And I think the idea being that if Eva were to enter into a relationship with JT, it would be the equivalent of being in a relationship with another woman. I think that line could go either way, I think.
But also there's a moment where they hook up with each other.
Yes,
right.
Is it at Cannes? No,
it's at Eva's house.
At Eva's house in Paris.
Right, they're in Paris. And how does she not know? I mean, there's that. I mean, there's what is being done to her.
Because I think that's as far as it goes.
But there's physical intimacy going on there. I mean, it's
But I think that's as far as it goes, right? I think that because
that's all of it.
Right. I think that's all of it. But you raise an interesting point. Although the way you definitely get a sense from the way JT reacts, as played by
Kristen Stewart.
Kristen Stewart.
Yes, we should mention Kristen Stewart.
Who was amazing in this, yeah.
That Kristen Stewart was unprepared for the use of the word lesbian, because there's this moment of you see her oh wait, what does she know?
Yeah.
Right.
It's an interesting bit of casting with Kristen Stewart because she is so androgynous herself, and it's a good fit for all the shadings of things that she can do. She is so subtle, and so she can portray a character who is, you know, when she's portraying JT, right? There's many layers of stuff going on here.
Yeah.
But when she is JT, the idea that there's a withdrawn kind of mystique about her is kind of a fun play on what Kristen Stewart's own persona has been for so long, and how misunderstood she has been, and how underestimated she has been for her talent.
Is Stewart playing a dude pretending to be another dude?
Pretending to be another dude.
No.
I mean, no. Savannah is presented as
Right.
somebody who wears a binder and like operates already in a very androgynous space, so it's not a giant leap.
Right. There's a moment where she talks about not eating certain things because it gives her curves.
Yeah.
It gives them curves. Sorry. We're trying to say they them because Savannah has chosen pronouns are they and them, so we're trying to respect that. Even though I'm bad at that.
Laura Dern plays
Laura
Albert, and you know it's a terrific performance as someone who you can tell in the first like 2 minutes when Savannah arrives at the apartment and how difficult to be around Laura that has to be, because she's just one of those people that just consumes all the oxygen in a room, and she has a troubled past, and she has always sort of had to create these alternate identities for various reasons, whether it's as a sex phone operator or just as a form of like sort of self-therapy. And again, the documentaries go into more detail about this. I don't know. I mean, ultimately, I think this is as a movie about a so bizarre you can't believe it even really happened phenomenon. Like, I dealt with JT Leroy on the phone once.
Oh, really?
When I was an editor at The Advocate, I assigned JT Leroy to do an interview with these like trans comic artists in San Francisco, and he did.
So you talked to Laura.
I did. Dave, I think, interviewed JT a couple of times for various magazines.
But did he get Savannah or did he get Laura?
No, on the phone you got Laura.
Right.
You always got Laura on the phone. Savannah was just for like the readings and stuff. And I mean, like, the JT Leroy phenomenon, for those who don't remember it, like, huge celebrities were like all over.
Yeah.
Like Winona Ryder was telling stories that wound up being bullshit about like, oh, I saw this kid outside the opera and I got him a ticket, you know, and you know, you'd go to the readings in LA and it would be like Ben Foster and Susan Day and like Sandra Bernhard. Like, people were really into this and would do the readings for JT because JT was so shy, you know, he couldn't do it. This massive literary hoax that so many people got sucked into. And I think this is maybe the least interesting of the three films that have been made about it, but if you are interested in the JT Leroy phenomenon, you know, it is an interesting sort of like fly on the wall kind of look at it.
It's just kind of superficial. I mean, it's fun to watch, like as a romp, as a farce of like Shakespearean comic levels, as far as mistaken identity and people pretending to be other people, and the building tension of how much longer can they keep this going,
Right.
Getting closer and closer with each step they make toward making this movie. You know, they're gonna get caught. You keep thinking they're gonna get caught, but it does not necessarily go as deeply as perhaps the documentaries do, which I have not seen, into the motivation, into the inner conflict that may or may not have existed as far as pulling off this giant ruse.
And also, I think because this is so a Savannah's story, where she's kind of the least interesting corner of this triangle. Like, I think it's much more interesting dealing with, like, when they would go in public, Savannah was JT and Laura was Speedy, JT's sort of obnoxious British manager, and Laura put on this British accent. And in public, obviously, JT would get fawned over and doted upon, and Speedy was kind of shoved to the side. And so Laura's having to watch her own creation that isn't her getting the praise, and, you know, the conflict that she feels about that.
Taking on a life of its own.
Yeah, the movie touches on that, but I think because it's so much Savannah's story, we kind of get her aspect of it. And frankly, as movies about hoaxes go, this isn't up there with either of the Fire Festival documentaries.
Oh yeah, no, it is a lot of fun. I laughed a lot. I gasped a lot. The
performances are definitely worth a look.
They're for Laura Dern, it's very showy because she's playing various people at various points in time. It has to like turn it off and on, and Kristen Stewart is as well, but not to the extremes of character that Laura Dern is. Jim Sturgess is in it too, and he's just kind of along for the ride as
Jim Sturgess often tends to be.
Savannah's brother, who is Laura's boyfriend, and he knows everything and goes along with it. Why? I don't know.
And I love Courtney Love's sort of sense of humor in being in this, because she was one of the people who was duped. Like in one of the docs, you hear phone conversations between JT and Courtney Love.
Oh, I didn't know that while I was watching it. Yeah, it's fun, but now I'm more curious to see the documentaries that you talked about, which I have not seen. So.
Yeah, I kind of enjoyed this too. I think I enjoyed it a little bit more than you guys did. I did find it this fascinating story that I had kind of known, but I hadn't seen either of the other movies and hadn't really followed the story at the time, because if it's not about Jedi, I don't read it.
You can't do that.
Right. It'd be different if JT was writing about dragons and stuff. Then I'd be more into it.
So what's your number, Matt?
Well,
Okay,
come on. Geez.
I'm sorry. I thought we were wrapping up in a nice spot there.
Yeah, one of the issues. I mean, I like the performances in this. Kristen Stewart's doing that really kind of introverted thing that she does, and it's interesting to watch. I had trouble though believing that, especially the Ava character, would, after 5 minutes, think that the JT in front of her is the same person that was on the phone.
Yeah.
Because the way you hear those phone calls, like that's a person who is not that shy. That's a person who's
engaging in conversation.
Who's engaging in conversation. And Kristen Stewart does the "I'm not talking to anyone" thing, and it just was like it didn't quite like it started to take like, who would believe this?
I remember real life Asia Argento giving quotes to the press like, "Oh, I'm going to have JT's baby" and stuff. And so once it all broke down, I thought, oh, she must have known. Like between making the movie and all the time that she spent, like she must have known. But again, this movie portrays her as being as bad as flummoxed as everybody else.
There you go.
Yeah.
What's your number?
Who knows?
What did I get?
It's 6.3.
6 point. Did I? No.
No, that's me.
No.
I'm saying 6.3. Matt said 7.
Yes, and I said 6.5. I mean, it is. I like the look of this film. It's the pacing is good. The performances are interesting. I just think that true stories have a lot to live up to, especially when they've been told as good documentaries, which this one has.
So our number is a 6.6. It's at 66% on the tomato meter, and I believe it's just limited this weekend?
I think limited this weekend, but it might already be streaming on Friday. So keep a lookout.
All right.
Thank you for watching. Like this video on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. Follow us at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And check out our Patreon at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. Thank you so much to all of you who've joined already. You get exclusive access to TV recaps and trailer reviews and all kinds of other cool stuff. So check it out. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye. We have so much more to do. We're at 56 right now. You want to blow off White Crow? What do you want to do?
I'm not in a rush.